So those of you who are quite astute will know that this is not my studio, and this is not my normal surroundings. That's probably something to do with the fact that I am in North Africa at the moment. However, it doesn't stop me doing my Sunday morning rant. So, this week I sort of, on Friday I went to see Jean-Michele in concert, and it's something I've been looking forward to for quite a while. A group of us managed to get tickets in Block B2 at the O2, which is that second block just back from the stage. It's absolutely ideal for sort of seeing any act that's on the stage in that area, and it's also great for the light show as well. So, how would I describe Jean-Michele at the O2? I would describe him as an audio-visual assault on the senses. It was everything that I expected it to be, and probably more. So what he did was effectively he came onto stage, and he played a combination of old tunes that everybody would know, so the Oxygens, the Equinoxes, but he brought them up to date. He gave them a more relevant feel to them, which was really, really good. And he intermingled those with some of the new stuff he was doing at the moment, which is from the electronica albums, and also some music that he'd composed specifically for the O2 concert, as it happens. So it was an absolutely phenomenal light show. Everything you'd expect to see from a Jean-Michele concert. There were lasers, there were projections, there was these moving video screens behind him. So it was exactly everything you'd expect to see. So if you get the chance to go and see Jean-Michele on his current tour, and if you're a keyboard player or into any sort of electronic music, I highly recommend you go see what I consider one of the masters at work in this area. It is phenomenal. The other thing I would say about the whole piece about Jean-Michele is the fact that he did take the older music and he did bring it up to date. So you knew it was Equinox, or you knew it was Oxygen Part 4 because it had that melody line to it, and you could follow the melody line all the way through the piece he was playing. But it had a real raw edge to it. It had a beat to it as well. He really did sort of make sure that the audience was engaged with the music that was going through, which I think is sort of quite important sometimes, because you can go and listen to this sort of music elsewhere, and they will play the old tune as the old tune was. And I think what he managed to do was he managed to make it. Managed to engage the audience in the tune that was being played, and it was up to date. And even if you didn't know what that tune was, you would be engaged. So it was really good. He had so there was 3 of them on stage. It was him with a bank of synthesizers. There was 2 other guys with a bunch of synthesizers, drum machines, drum kits, and vocoders. It was a collection of old and new, and really good, so recommended. Go and see it. The other thing I found out, and I've never used this before, is going into London and going to the O2 has always to me been a tube ride, and for one reason or another this time round we decided to get the river taxi. Boy, does it make a difference. All these times we've been going to the O2 and you have to queue after the concert to get down to the tube. The river taxi, it's there. You just get on it and then you just chug up the river. Oh, man. Note to oneself, take the river taxi. And the other thing, that just sort of aside with this, obviously the System 8, everybody knows the System 8's coming out. It's the sort of big elephant in the room, and we're all waiting for our deliveries. If you've ordered the new keyboard, which, as you know, I have. There was a piece in one of the magazines, or was it a magazine, or might have been online actually, I think it was online I saw it, of Jean-Michele actually playing Equinox Part 17, which is the brand new, not Equinox, Oxygen Part 17, sorry, which is the brand new track that he's done for the O2. on the System 8. So there you go. How much more relevant to the current conversation can you get? Jean-Michele was playing the System 8. Has he got a System 8? Well, I doubt if Roland haven't given him one. Yeah, by the way, Roland, where's mine? I want mine. So moving on to other sort of more mundane things, I suppose. This week I've got one of those annoying glitches that's arisen in the DX7. So I was working on DX7 in a week, and I've put this on the table before when I say the DX7 is that's a pain in the arse to program, and I've always stood beside that. I mean, I know there's a guy I correspond with through the channel who I sort of get the impression is a bit of a DX7 expert, and I take hat off to you, man. In terms of synthesis, because at one point I probably would have been able to do the stuff you're doing without thinking about it. Now I have to get the manual out. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. I mean, a lot of it's probably sort of back in the grey matter before a few brain cells died, but I really have to get the manual out, and I have to sort of when I've got the manual out, I then have to sort of sit down and work out what it is I'm trying to do. Anyway, I'd gone through that exercise. I think it was Wednesday evening last week, and I'd made some tweaks to some patches for something I was doing at the moment. It weren't massive tweaks; they're really sort of stuff around the edge. And I then came to thought, well, I need to back these up because obviously, I haven't got a cartridge available at the moment for whatever reason. So I got the computer out, I connected the computer up, went through my whole thing of connecting the computer up via the little MIDI interface that I have for doing this backup and restore of SysX. And then the keyboard kept saying, no cartridge found, cannot back up. And I kept thinking, why is it asking for a cartridge? And I tried all kinds of other things, still wouldn't have it, no cartridge found. So in the end, I put a cartridge in the keyboard, and lo and behold, it backs up. So, what is going on? I cannot say, but like last time I had this issue, I can't tell you how I created the issue in the first place, and equally, to this day, I cannot tell you how I solved the issue. It was all trial and error, and to be honest, the DX7 is a bit trial and error when it comes to some of these sort of things. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to turn around and say it is a keyboard that is 30 odd years old, and trying to get information on these keyboards is difficult. I maintain an information store at home where I have books and reference manuals for the DX7, which are the things I dive into every single time I get a problem or every single time I need to change something to do with a patch. I've always recommended that if you have a DX7, you go and try and obtain a copy of the complete DX7, and they do one for the Mark 1 and they do one for the Mark 2, and I completely advocate trying to get hold of a copy of that book. It's about that thick, and it runs to 300 and something pages, I think, if I remember correctly. I am doing this from memory because I know how it's that thick. But yeah, if you can get hold of one of those, you're going to save yourself a huge amount of time. Although, having said that, you do have to read the sections probably 2 or 3 times to actually really understand what it's actually telling you to do. But once you get to grips with it, it makes the DX7 an easier beast to handle. I have seen though on the DX7 for programming wise, there is a company. I think I've mentioned this before on the blog on the Rant. That there's a company in the Netherlands that is doing a real-time programming interface for the DX7. It's a bit pricey. I mean, I'm not being funny here, but it is a bit pricey at about €1,000. But it does allow you to do what the PG1000 does for the D50, which take the patch, load it into the unit, and then real time make the changes. So is it worth €1,000? It depends on whether you're a complete DX7 nut. If you're a complete DX7 nut, it's probably worth every penny of €1,000. If not, you probably need to sort of think about it. And when I'm talking about thinking about things, it sort of moves me on to the next point, which is something worth it? I saw something online this week, and it was one of the discussion groups, and it was sort of going on about the TR8. I've got to get the numbers right. The drum machine from the ARIA line, and it was basically saying, the resale value of the TR8 is going to drop through the floor because of another drum machine that's just about to come onto the market, and it has a different type of synthesis. I'm not quite sure. The ARIA, not the ARIA, the Brute. I can't think what it is now. His brain's gone completely dead. But there's another drum machine that's just come on the market. Everyone's started to rave about, and they were saying the resale value, and that's a problem. I actually don't think it's a problem at all. And then this is my thinking. When I buy a piece of equipment, it doesn't matter what that piece of equipment is, but I will have bought that piece of equipment for a reason. So if I go and buy a new keyboard, it's because I'm interested in probably the sound textures that keyboard gives me, the playing experience of the keyboard, the overall maybe look and feel of the keyboard, but more than anything else, it's being able to play the damn thing. And I'm going to play it for a specific reason. I've bought it for a specific reason. If I don't get on with that keyboard, then yes, I will sell it on. There's no ifs, buts and maybes. I've had keyboards in the past that I just do not get on with, and I've sold them on, and that's fair play. I mean, that's for me to buy something, and if I don't get on with it, now when I buy something, I don't make my decision at all based on what I can get back for it. So for argument's sake, I'm going to go and buy a System 8. I know I'm going to buy a System 8 because I've ordered one, right? Am I going to get on with a System 8? I really don't know, because it's a bit of punt luck, if you like. However, I've got a System 1, I get on with my System 1. The System 8 is an extended piece of logic to the System 1, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to get on with that. I'm not looking to buy my System 8 and then saying, if I don't get on with it, I can sell it for £1,000, sell it back into the market for €1,000 and get my money back. That's not my mental logic here. My mental logic is I'm buying it because I want it and I want to use it for a certain purpose. If I can't use it in that area, then I'll make an informed decision. I'll weigh up the pros and cons and then maybe sell it on. And one of the keyboards, which was a controller keyboard actually, which was the Axiom Air, I could not get on with the Axiom Air one bit. I struggled. I tried to use that controller keyboard for at least 6 months, and it just did not fit in with my workflow one iota. So in the end, I sort of bit the bullet and sold it on, and made a loss on the keyboard itself. But I know that I sold it to somebody who was making the purchase for the right reasons. I wasn't looking at the resale value. So what is it I'm trying to say here? What I'm saying is, if you're buying a piece of equipment and you're looking at the resale value of that piece of equipment, I think you're buying the piece of equipment for the wrong reason. If you're buying the piece of equipment because you generally want to use it or you have a need for it, then you're buying the piece of equipment for the right reason. And I think you, as the musician, have to, and the creative being behind the music that you are putting out, have to make those judgments. Now, yes, I'm in the fortunate position that I can afford to buy pieces of equipment and experiment with them, but it still doesn't change my mind in terms of why would you do it. You would do it because you have a need and you have a requirement. Anyway, that's enough said about resale values. It just makes me annoyed when you hear people sort of talking about resale values going through the floor. I'm sorry, but that's, if you're buying a piece of equipment for that, you're just in it for the money. That annoys me. You should be in it for the music. Moving on, and this is a sort of thing I pinged up on the channel About a year ago, maybe slightly more, but about a year ago, I did a video to camera with 3 of the RE units, and that was the TB3, the TR8, and the System 1. And the piece I did to camera was all about using the TR8 clock to effectively drive the arpeggiator on the System 1 and the arranger on the TB3. So the idea was to have all 3 in sync. And I did that piece, it got fairly positive reviews and comments from the wider population out there. And it was relatively simple. It was how you arrange the MIDI and how you set up each keyboard to actually be, for the TR8 to be the master and the TB3 and the System 1 to be the slaves. So that was fine. Anyway, one of the questions that came back, so somebody had obviously watched that video and then turned around and put a comment and said, how does the audio work? And how do I put this? Badly. So, in the early days, when the first 2 units of the ARIA series came out, and they were the TR8 and the TB3, so when those first 2 units came out, you saw a lot of videos by Roland, had been made by Roland, obviously giving it out to various individuals in the music world to get their take on how good the units were. And what you saw effectively the TB3 connected to the TR8, and then both units, their sound was being output through the master mix on the TR8. So what does that mean? Well, that means basically on the TR8 you've got an external in. And given that you've got an external in, that obviously means you can pump some more instruments in there, and it works really well if you have 2 of the ARIA pieces and no MX1. However, and this is the however, as soon as you start to expand beyond 2 pieces of equipment, you start to run into some problems. And here's another however. So thinking about what you might be using the System 1 for and what you're using the TB3 for. If you're using the System 1 for a bass sound, which tends to be what I use the System 1 for, if I'm honest. I tend to have a bassy, synthy sound loaded up onto there, and I quite often use the arpeggiator on it to give just some texture behind the sound. But if you have that on the System 8, it's going to be typically a mono sound, even though the System 1 has stereo outs, and the bassline sound again is typically going to be a mono sound, even though you have stereo outs on the TB3. So you could, if you didn't have a mixer available or had limited desk space available, take the left-hand mono channel out of the TB3 and put that into one of the inputs on the TR8, so let's say the left-hand input, and take the left-hand output on the System 1 and put that into the right-hand input on the TR8. Therefore you would have all 3 units without a mixer, without the MX1, playing through the TR8. The downside, of course, is that the TB3 would be on the left-hand channel and the TR8 on the right-hand channel. But if it was a mono signal, would that be such a problem? If you were going through a desk, you could always use the desk to change the pan pot slightly to give you a slightly less of a pan, and therefore cross the signals over a bit. I'm not saying you would want to do that, but it does solve the problem. The biggest issue really with all the ARIA and all the boutique equipment that's coming out now is it's really designed to be used with a USB. If I'm honest, every way I tend to use the damn things, I end up using the USB back to the MX1, and then I use the MX1 as my master mixer rather than the outputs separately on each individual unit. So, which brings us on to another point, which is, of course, Roland, where's the MX2? My biggest issue with a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is you have so many devices in that space, especially with the advent of the TR9 and the TB03. we're sort of running out of USB sockets. I mean, there's only 4 USB sockets on the back of the MX1, and to my knowledge, especially when the System 8 comes along, and the fact that Roland have been upgrading the MX1 over successive patch releases to include most of their latest synths. So I currently have on my MX1, I have my System 1, my TB3, my TR8, and my Jupiter. So, how am I going to plug my System 8 in? So something's got to move. So really what we're saying here is that we probably need a MX2 or something where you can extend the USB on the MX1. I think Roland need to they're pumping out this equipment, and there's people out there like me are buying it, but we really do need the MX1 or a compatible device there to support the expansion of all this USB device equipment. The 4 ports was great when you launched Aria, but now we're two, maybe 3 years down the line from that point, and you've got so much more equipment that really could do with the USB desk interface like an MX2. So Roland, where is the MX2? Anyway, I've said enough on that. And finally, just for this week, I am so jealous. I really am so jealous of all these people who are starting to receive their System 8s. I've seen a number of posts on various user groups of people unboxing their System 8. In the UK, I understand we are still at least 3 weeks away from the System 8 being delivered to the end users like moi. So I am so jealous, and I suspect the reason why we're lagging behind the rest of the world is because our power supply in the UK is of course a 240 volt 60 hertz power supply, whereas in the rest of the world, or most of the world should I say, you're operating on 110 volts or 120 volts. So I suspect they've produced more power supplies for you guys than they have for us. So of course we are waiting for the power supply. Now what I did notice, one of the forums I did notice, is the System 8 is a slightly more powerful beast than other ARA equipment. With other ARA equipment you can actually use the same power supply from a TB3 with a System 8, with a System 1, with the TR8. But the System 8 is a slightly more powerful beast, and you can't effectively interchange the power supply from a System 1 with a System 8. It's a new power supply because it needs more oomph behind it. So that said, and jealousy aside, I will catch up with you guys next week. Take care.